We'll move on to the final movie for today's show, Haunt from 2019. So on Halloween, a group of friends encounter this extreme haunted house that promises to feed on their darkest fears. And of course, once people are inside, bad things start happening and their night of fun becomes a night of survival as they're being hunted and attacked by a number of different psychopaths. Now, this movie's been getting quite a lot of good reviews, and maybe even to the point, I think, where it's getting a little overrated. I don't think it's a bad movie. It's there's moments to the movie that feel a bit cliched or maybe a bit generic at times. There is an interesting subplot that happens kind of before the halfway point or somewhere around there, which really helps to pick things up. But unfortunately, that subplot doesn't really go much further, or doesn't really get explained much more in detail. You know, it's a bit of a roller coaster for me. It starts out kind of okay, then it picks up, then it kind of goes back down again. And because so many people hyped it up, I think that hurt it a little bit when I watched it, because I wasn't expecting anything great, but I was expecting something good, and I think I just got a very okay to decent movie out of this one.
I thought the movie was certainly pretty intense. You know, there were some scenes in the haunted house that, like I was not, cringing or sort of, I don't like spiders, for instance. So the whole thing with spiders in the spider webs, that just bothered me. I would be out of there before I even got in there. I would not go through that at all. So I mean, there were a few scenes, and like the scene where one of the characters is putting your hand through to feel for, like, hey, got this body part. That had sort of a predictable conclusion, but even so, it's still a bit tense. My biggest issue with this one is I wanted more backstory on the guys running this haunted house. There were some like unanswered questions here. Yeah, it just sort of bugged me. And it doesn't help that the ending I thought was exceptionally weak.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel as well. I mean, the killers in the movie, there's some cool masks to check out, but for me, the cast was quite average. None of the characters outside of some of these killers really stood out to me. I didn't really care too much whether they lived or died. There's this boyfriend coming to save the day, and
an abusive boyfriend coming.
Yeah, an abusive boyfriend coming to save the day, and as soon as he gets there, it's well, not to spoil anything, but it almost seemed like pretty much a waste.
Although it is worth mentioning that the main character, who is played by Katie Stevens, she did finish 8th place on the 9th season of American Idol, so well done.
Well, it's good to see things panned out and her singing career has taken off.
Yeah, 8th place on American Idol, some quality. I didn't have a big issue with their cast. I didn't think they were spectacular by any means, but they were sort of like the generic haunted house cast type thing. Actually, when I was watching this, I couldn't help but be reminded of a movie that you've seen recently, House of Purgatory, which has a not necessarily, it's not like it's the exact same, but it's still like a Halloween haunted house type thing. And I was just thinking back to, I know that you did have a great time at that movie, but I was thinking back to, what I enjoyed about that one, and, what this one might have been able to do a bit better. And I don't know, it's unfortunate that it's not really, at least in my experience, it's not really a great Halloween haunted house type thing.
Yeah.
Aside from Hall House LLC.
I also had the same thoughts, because like you said, I saw House of Purgatory, and I was thinking or comparing that with this as I was watching it. Even though they're both kind of different movies in a way, they both focus on, having this extreme type of haunted house situation.
Yeah, and actually, on a related note, so there actually are, like, extreme haunted house type things. And I was actually reading about one after I saw this movie. And it just blew my mind because I didn't know anything like this existed. But there's one type of haunted house type thing where you have to sign like a 40-page waiver before you can go through. And, like what they can do to the guests once they sign the waiver, what they can legally do, because it's consensual, it's just like blows my mind. Like pulling out teeth, getting some fingernails pulled out. That just blows my mind that somebody would willingly, I mean, by all means, if that's your type of thing, I guess, but I don't know who would go through that.
Yeah, I think there was some news articles, whether it was on Facebook or something, that I came across where they talked about. I'm guessing it's this specific one that you're talking about, and they're saying no one's ever gotten through it, and that's because people are just being tortured. They're not. It's not necessarily a haunted house. They're just literally being tortured.
Yeah, like what I'm saying, they can physically assault patrons, hit them with things, waterboard them, force them to eat and drink unknown substances. It's just, I mean, talk about, I mean, I don't get why somebody would sign a 40-page waiver just to go through that. It just blows my mind. But
it's like, hey, let's treat them like they're one of these people in like a Hostel movie or something where they're just tied to a chair and getting fucking chainsawed and everything.
And actually, I think the most surprising thing about all of this is, at least, I read a few articles about this because I was just sort of amazed because, like I said, I'd never heard of this before. Like, there's like one of these with a waiting list of over 20,000 people to go through this, and that just, I mean, like I said, if it's your type of thing, by all means, but after you read through that torture that you could theoretically go through, I would just, even you do get a safe word, but even so, I would not feel safe in that condition whatsoever.
It's really how much torture can you handle before you tap out, and they're probably going to go to the lengths where you're pretty much almost going to die.
Yeah, which leads me back actually to Hound, because at the beginning of this movie, they signed a waiver too. Now it looked to me like a pretty short waiver. I don't know if it's like multiple pages, but it looked pretty short. But as we find out, they give like the address and stuff on it, which of course comes into play toward the in my opinion, somewhat ridiculous conclusion. But I just want to say that the way that they took this movie past the finale, just I was hoping for something I don't know what I was hoping for. Aside from I was hoping for something a bit better than what they gave us. And in many ways, like you said, I feel like this movie is getting quite a bit more positive attention than I would have thought this movie would have gotten.
And maybe if it didn't get all this attention and I'd watched it, that may have actually helped a little in giving a slightly higher rating than what I'm going to give it. But
yeah, it might have helped a little, but without giving like I said any background on some of these people. And to be honest, I'm still not entirely sure if these people were supposed to be. Let me. Spoilers, if you have not seen this movie, just wait like 15 seconds. I have no idea if these people are supposed to be like mutated humans or demons or what. And like I said, it never really got into it, but it just sort of bothered me.
I mean, it was interesting when you kind of saw beyond the mask what they kind of look like, but then you want to know, okay, why? And it never gets explained, and yeah, so the main interesting part about the movie, and I mean, sometimes in a movie it's fine if you don't explain that thing and you leave it to the imagination, but in this instance, it's just one of those movies where it just leaves you scratching your head thinking, I really would have liked to know what the hell was going on.
Yeah, there's some movies that you watch that you wish you could like more, and I wish I could like this more than I did. I still had an okay time with it. Like you said, it's still an okay movie, but it's certainly not amazing in my opinion, and it's probably not really. It's not a movie I can imagine myself wanting to see that many more times, and I don't know. It's just a movie that doesn't strike me as something that is really going to stand out. Let's say in 5 years, are people going to be talking about Haunt? I just don't see it. I've heard you think about this one for a bit. I'm probably going to give it a 6.5, and I'll probably round that. Let's say, let's go with round it down to a 6, because this movie had the potential to be a pretty decent movie. I mean, Eli Roth of Hostel was one of the producers of this, so I mean, it's not like they didn't have the possibility of making a pretty okay movie, but this is some unexplained things. The ending falls flat in my opinion, and even though there was some pretty intense scenes throughout the movie, and some of the gore was pretty solid. It just, the movie overall it just wasn't nearly as good as I was hoping it could be. And so yeah, I think a 6.5, 6 out of 10 is probably an okay rating.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 6. It was okay, but yeah, it just felt like the before that whole subplot of seeing what's behind their mask, it felt a little cliche and generic at times, and because we didn't get much explanation on the most interesting parts of the movie, it just left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. And like you said, the ending could have been a lot better, and there's some good things here, but I don't think it was executed all that well. Who knows? Maybe I'll enjoy it a little bit more on next time I choose to give it a watch. But yeah, it just didn't seem all that special to me. I don't know why people are raving so much about it. It's okay. It's it's nothing special.